Welcome to our Ambassador Interviews webzine. My name is Yvonne Kim, and I'm the Executive Director of Asia Society Korea. Today, it is my honor to interview our new honorary ambassador member, Her Excellency Chring Botum Rangsay, Ambassador of the Kingdom of Cambodia to the Republic of Korea. Previously, Her Excellency has held the position of Secretary of State at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Cambodia until September 2021. She also served as the Undersecretary of State at the Ministry from May 2019 to December 2020. Prior to that, Ambassador Chring held various positions, such as Undersecretary of State at the Ministry of Post and Telecommunications, Consultant and Meeting Coordinator at the Joint United Nations Program on HIV/AIDS, and Project Assistant for Japan External Trade Organization. Ambassador Chring is a decorated public servant who has received the Royal Order of Moni Sarafan, the Grand Cross. Your Excellency, Happy New Year, and thank you for joining us. How are you today?
Thank you, Yvonne. I'm good today, and Happy New Year to you too. And thank you for such a wonderful introduction.
Thank you so much. We're so happy to have you today. I would like to start today's conversation about the bilateral relations between Cambodia and South Korea. Since diplomatic relations between the two countries were established in 1997, they have expanded their cooperation in various fields such as trade, development cooperation, and people-to-people exchanges. Looking forward to the 25th anniversary of our formal relationship, Seoul's new Southern policy emphasizes strengthening partnerships with ASEAN countries, including Cambodia. How do you view Cambodia's relationship with South Korea so far?
Thank you, Yvonne. Since 1997, when Cambodia and South Korea has established diplomatic relationships, I can see that the relationship have flourished tremendously over the past years, starting from the establishment of exchange of people to people through tourism and also training exchange between the two countries. As you can see, even in the early 2000s, Korean tourists has been our number one tourist who visited Cambodia, especially the Angkor Wat. And I think what attracted the two countries together is the principle and the cultural similarity. Furthermore, throughout the year, our trade number has also increased, and investment also has increased. In terms of trade, we have, as of January of this year, 2022, we have about 111 million US dollars of bilateral trade between the two countries. In that, we have about 78 million of exporting trade from Korea into Cambodia and about 30 millions of importing trade from Cambodia to Korea. So this, we can see that, the exchange in terms of trade has been improved tremendously over the past year. And we're only looking forward to further increase in the following year. This in light of the up and coming free trade agreement, as you may have already well aware that under the RCEP agreement, that both the Cambodian government and the Republic of Korea government has rectified most recently and put into implementation. So this will give a lot of opportunity for further trade expansion. And at the same time, we have the upcoming Korea-Cambodia free trade agreement, bilateral free trade agreement. For Cambodia, we have already rectified the free trade agreement between Cambodia and Korea, but we are now waiting for the Korean government to pass this free trade agreement and rectify it, and hopefully very soon, because during our Prime Minister Hun Sen visit to Korea, last week, he was mentioning about this free trade agreement with President Moon Jae-in. And fortunately, the progress has been moving forward. And now this free trade agreement paper is put into the National Assembly for review. So hopefully we'll see that come out fruitfully soon, very soon. And furthermore, culture exchange, as you may have been aware, there's a lot of cultural similarity between the two countries. We have the Angkor Kyungyu. So where there's a sister relationship between Angkor, which is a very historic area in Siem Reap province. I think a lot of Korean already know Angkor Wat, a very famous destination in Cambodia. And, Kyungyu is also an historical site in Korea. And the two has a lot of history that we can share and looking back into like hundreds of years. So this is another thing that's connecting the two countries together. And furthermore, this year, as you mentioned about the New Southern Policy and New Southern Policy Plus that the Korean government has implemented, and this shed light into the importance of the ASEAN economy that is quickly growing, and definitely the Korean government has recognized that and see that there's a potential in purchasing power from the Southeast Asian nation. And as a matter of fact, late of last year in 2021, we have a meeting, a workshop to summarize and sort of evaluate the effectiveness of the new Southern policy. And clearly it shows that it has contributed to the growing economy of South Korea, especially in terms of trade promotion. And furthermore, there's a lot of activity in plan that we're putting it together among the ASEAN countries to further increase the relationship between South Korea and the ASEAN nation. And this year, Cambodia, we are the chairmanship years of Cambodia, of the ASEAN chairmanship year. So we just had our foreign minister retreat just last week as well. So this has gone out very well. There's a lot of positive start to the year. So please looking forward to that. It's an exciting years. As we, the pandemic has hit hard to not just, Korea and Cambodia, but all around the world. But hopefully this year we can see an endemic, where we can control and manage the pandemic and come out of it and see a progressive start to picking up the economy once again. So I think I took up a lot of time answering that question.
No. Thank you so much for the detailed response. And it does sound exciting indeed. And speaking of trade, the Asian Development Bank, ADB, forecasts that the Cambodian economy will grow by 1.9% in 2021 and accelerate to 5.5% in 2022. For global investors, Cambodia has lower restrictions on foreign direct investments and currency trades than any other Southeast Asian countries. And in light of all these features that make Cambodia an attractive place to invest, what are some of the specific sectors and industries where economic cooperation between Cambodia and Korea could create the most synergy and mutual benefits?
Thank you. Thank you for a great introduction to the economy of Cambodia. Yes, Cambodia is growing and still is growing very rapidly despite the pandemic. The investment environment in Cambodia, I would have to say that currently is looking flourishing. As you might have already noticed, because this has been put into place since last October, that Cambodia has open up our border again to all investors, meaning that all travelers are able to travel to Cambodia, having fully vaccinated, there's no quarantine procedure required for them to enter into Cambodia. So this give a lot of good reason for investor to enter into the Cambodian market. And at the same time, just late of last year, we have established a new investment law. So we have previously an investment law that has been in place for over 10 years, but we have updated the law and passed it through the government, and it has been put into act. And this new investment law really give a lot of incentive to the investors. It provides a lot of benefits to foreign investor in terms of tax holiday, meaning that for a company who wishes to invest in Cambodia, previously they have about 3 to 9 years of tax exemption in their first investment, but that still stands. But now we have a further tax holiday, meaning that after those specific years, they can choose to pay an installation of a commitment of tax income. So normally, straight after the exemption period, you have to pay the full income tax. But now with this new investment tax, you can pay an installment of 25% in the first year or 50% in the second year. As such, in terms of negotiation, there's a freedom there that the company can work together with the government. And at the same time, the new law allow the foreign company to completely own 100% of the investment, whereas before, there has to be a combination of a local investment, investment and a foreign investment. But now the foreign investment can completely own 100% of these investment companies. And furthermore, for these companies who invested in Cambodia, there's no capitalized on the amount of income that return back to the home countries. So this gives room and flexibility to investor company to mobilize their fund around between the two countries. And at the same time, this new law provide non-discriminatory factors, meaning that the law applies to all different company from different nations. So there's non-discrimination at that. And then we're talking about sorry, I'm just picking up a lot of things. We also have tax exemption on the import of machineries and equipments that coming into the country for investment. So these are also some of the benefits. And in terms of sectoral promotion, we see that the two countries, Cambodia and Korea, there's a huge potential in industrial sector and also agricultural sector. You may have already been aware that Cambodia is a country where we highly exporting agricultural products. And I see that there's a potential market here where we can supply agricultural product at a good quality as well as a better price, a more competitive price. Since I arrived to Korea, my first visit was down to the local market, to see what are the variety of product and see what are the sentimental of buyers here in Korea. And in the summer, I arrived here in September. So during the summer, there's a lot of fruit and vegetable, fresh fruit and vegetable available on the market. But then the sentimental was that during the winter, these fresh fruit and vegetable is scarce, become scarce because of the weather condition. And, as you know, Cambodia, we have approximate weather of around 30 degrees Celsius all year round. So this provides a good environment and condition to grow agricultural products, which means that we can supply these agricultural products to Korea all year round at a reasonable price. And I think this will raise the standard of living and the condition of the people, in the future. And at the same time, in terms of industrial, Cambodia, we have become, industrial sector has become one of our main source of revenue generations, meaning that we have a growing population of growing population of about more than 50%, which are young and capable workers. So this means that our industrialized zone has largely expanded, and we have exporting to America and the European countries over the past 10 years successfully, and our product has been highly qualified by those countries. And I think that is just more opportunity for Korea to enter into the Cambodian market in terms of investment in industrial sectors, and especially share their technology, because Korea is a country that highly innovative in terms of technology, and we can definitely utilize this combination and increase production at a higher quality using the Korean technology. At the same time, Cambodia is situated in the central of the Southeast Asia, which means that we are connecting to all these countries within the ASEAN. So it's like a central hub where the investment can definitely benefit from the purchasing power of the ASEAN market. And furthermore, to the extensive to Korea, to China, and to America, which Cambodia already have the free trade agreement with. So. So I think that will highlight some of the aspect of the trade and investment and other area that of concern between Cambodia and Korea. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Although COVID has made it difficult for us to travel internationally, and you told us that there is some good news on the Cambodian side, but there was a time when South Korea was the top ranked country for the number of tourists visiting Cambodia. As you mentioned earlier, tourism has always been a huge common denominator for our nations, with anywhere between 250,000 to 300,000 Korean tourists visiting Cambodia each year before the height of COVID, which made up 3 to 5% of total tourists. Can you give us an overview of what the COVID situation in your country looks like right now, and how the pandemic has changed the everyday livelihood of the people, and what that means for Cambodia's tourism industry?
Thank you, Yvonne, for that question. And I think it's simple to say that the pandemic has hit all of the country all around the globe, especially those countries who heavily relied on the tourism industry. And Cambodia is no exception. In the past, one of our main revenue generated income was from the tourism industry. And with the pandemic start in early 2020, even though we have maintained the number of COVID new infection cases to a very minimal. We didn't have any domestic case until November of 2020, so which is a good signal. But at the same time, this does not mean that the economy, and especially the tourism industry, was not affected, because a lot of the border of different nations, including Cambodia, has been closed since the pandemic started in early 2020. This means that the tourism industry has been closed down to a minimal. A lot of small and medium businesses especially has been hard hit by the pandemic because of the low number of tourism. At some point, there's none who enter into Cambodia. So this has tremendously affecting them. But regardless, the government system has benefited them in some way, in a way that the government provided financial support to these small and medium businesses. And the decision in October last year, where the government started to open up the border again, is really give more hope to the tourism industry. But at the same time, during the pandemic, because of the border closure in most of the country around the globe, that means that the domestic tourism has been on an increase because, over the past year, the purchasing power of the domestic market in terms of tourism has increased. So this channel of flow has to go somewhere. So the local tourism industry has been supported by the local traveler mostly. And, a lot of the new growing trends of traveling in Cambodia has been discovered because before the biggest tourism industry was mostly focusing on the Siem Reap area where the Angkor Wat and all the other monuments and temples are located, and also the beach area like Sihanouk Vale, Koh Kong, Kep, and Kampot. But during the pandemic, people are start exploring. So ecotourism has been one of the highlights of the throughout the whole 2 years. New people are enjoying nature's going out hiking and bushwalking, mountain climbing, and sightseeing, bird watching. This is something that we recently discovered and highly promoted. And I think this will goes well with the Korean traveler because as I understand, Korean traveler, especially young traveler, they love to go and explore the ecotourism industry. So I think that will open a new market opportunity in Cambodia for Korean young travelers to visit Cambodia. And currently, with the management of the COVID situation in Cambodia, we have done a tremendous job. During, like I've mentioned, in 2020, we didn't have any domestic case until, in November, or the starting of the first domestic case in Cambodia. But then the number was very minimal. It's ranging, the highest was a couple of thousand infection per day. And furthermore, we have started the vaccination program very early in 2021. And as of now, we have reached almost, more than 90% of the population has been fully vaccinated. And we have done a tremendous job on providing the third and now the fourth dose of vaccination. And even though during the Delta outbreak and also the Omicron variants, we still managed to control this domestic outbreak. Currently, we have about maybe 400 to 500 cases per day, new cases per day. So with the Omicron, comparing to other countries, that's a big difference, I suppose. So like I always said, if you plan to visit anywhere right now, Cambodia is the destination to go because of the low number of cases and the condition that we provide in terms of, travelers entering in Cambodia without quarantine restriction. So we highly recommend it that you visit Cambodia.
I will definitely try that. I would love to visit. And speaking of tourism and bilateral exchanges, there are over 50,000 Cambodians expats living, working, and or studying in Korea today. Yes. What are the key factors that attract so many Cambodians to you?
As my Prime Minister has mentioned the same situation to the Speaker of the National Assembly during the bilateral meeting. He said that, why do we have so many Korean men marry Cambodian women? What's other factors? And I think the main key aspect there is family orientation, meaning that both of our nation, we have similarity in terms of culture and orientation towards the family. So this has kind of cemented the bond between the two nations. We have about 45,000 of Cambodian workers who come to work in Korea, and also about 8,000 women who has who has married Korean men and established a lifelong commitment here in Korea. And out of that, I think the latest statistic may be around 10,000 children of joint race has been born. So that's a growing good population of combination of Cambodian Korea relationship there. And about 380 students who are currently studying in Korea. So these add up to the number that you have mentioned. I think one of the main key factor is the environment, the condition that the Korean government has been providing for the student, for the married woman, and also for the migrant workers. I mean, Korea has been one of the destination that highly sought after for all Cambodian workers that wishes to work overseas, because in terms of wage provided by the system here in the employment system here in Korea is comparably the most valuable one, and then the working condition and healthcare system and the caretaking in terms of living condition for these workers has been well looked after or protected. That's why when Cambodian are choosing to work overseas, we tend to look for Korea as the destination to come. And there's a long waiting list of more migrant workers from Cambodia to Korea. And we're hoping to increase that number because we know that Korea, especially during the pandemic, the shortage of labor resources has been a problem, and we hope that we can, compensate that shortage in the near future. And Cambodian workers, we have received many praise from the Korean employer that, we're hardworking and also dedicated and gentle and a good listener. So that's always a good plus to this relationship. Yes.
And one of the many common cultural aspects the two countries have in common, food cultures. And we both have rice as their staple food, but one key difference is that Cambodians also eat a lot of rice noodles, which happens to be a traditional dish in your country. So what did you say is a distinctive feature of Cambodian cuisine compared to its Southeast Asian counterparts? And would you care to recommend one of your favorite Cambodian dishes to Korea?
Oh, I think if I answer the most distinctive feature of Cambodian cuisine is prahok. I don't think you can find it anywhere else. There's similarity, but the taste and the smell, there's no comparison. So basically, it's a fermented fish that's fermented using salt and put into sort of a fermented containment, similar to kimchi in a way, but it has a distinctive smell and a very salty taste. It may be a bit hard to get adjusted to, but it's definitely one of our food staple in Cambodia, aside from rice and noodles. And usually prahok, we use it in many dishes, incorporate into many dishes, more similar to soybean paste of Korean, where you can use it as ingredient into different dishes. So if I have to recommend one of my favorite, I have so many, after coming here after 5 months, I kind of miss all these Cambodian cuisine. So you're reminding me, and I'm starting to really miss home food. But if I have to recommend one, I would have to say num bun chok. So it's a Cambodian traditional noodles. You can have num bun chok is just a noodle, but you can have different sort of sauce to it. You can add different sort of sauce to it. The main one, my favorite one, is some law praha, which made out of a fish paste and with a little bit of mixture of lemongrass, turmeric, and the taste, it's just savory with a lot of vegetable added to it. So that would have to be one of my favorite. And as a matter of fact, during the New Year start of 2022, I had sent a gift card to everyone to celebrate the New Year, and I placed Nombanjok on the front of the card, just a representative of a little bit of Khmer taste to everyone here in Korea. Yes.
You seem especially happy when we're talking about food, and probably why it's everyone's favorite topic. And it's only 10:30 in the morning here, but my mouth is already watery. So maybe you and I could establish a food program to introduce some of the Cambodian dishes.
Definitely. I really love the opportunity to do that. I've heard that, my predecessor, Ambassador Long Dimanche, while he was here, he has attended a lot of food festivity here in Korea and also to showcase Cambodian dish. And since I arrived, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we didn't have many chance to do that. But I'm hoping that this year we can have more chance to showcase our dish and share the different dish between other nations as well, our ASEAN family, as well as the Korean dishes. I had an opportunity to make the kimchi late of last year during one of the tour, and I absolutely love it. And if we can, definitely, I would love the idea to have a joint program where we can share some of the dishes together and have a tasting activity, dish tasting activity. Yes.
That sounds wonderful. And you and I can keep talking about food for hours, but unfortunately, we both have to go back to work.
Yes.
So unfortunately, we have to end the interview today. And Your Excellency, once again, welcome to Korea and to Asia Society Korea. All of us are very much looking forward to working closely with you and your embassy. And thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join our audience today. And we hope to see you again very soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Yvonne, for having me. And thank you, everyone, for listening to this interview. And I hope to meet everyone of you very soon in the next interview or the next event. Thank you once again for the Asian Society for hosting this eventful interview.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.